Hello everyone, we're doing chapter 4 and we're on paragraph 28. Moreover, there is a gap in the whole argument. I can follow the processes in my organism up to those in my brain, even though my assumptions become more and more hypothetical as I approach the central processes of the brain. The path of external observation ceases with the process in my brain, more particularly with the process which I should observe if I could deal with the brain using the instruments and methods of physics and chemistry. The path of inner observation begins with the sensation and continues up to the building of things out of the material of sensation. At the point of transition from brain process to sensation, the path of observation is interrupted. And the summary we had for that was, because external observation ends with the process in the brain and internal observation begins with sensation, at the point of transition, this is an interruption in the path of observation. And so we're going to move on to 29. The way of thinking here described, known as critical idealism, in contrast to the standpoint of naive consciousness, known as naive realism, makes the mistake of characterizing the one percept as mental picture, while taking the other in the very same sense as does the naive realism, which it apparently refutes. It wants to prove that percepts have the character of mental pictures by naively accepting the percepts connected with one's own organism as objectively valid facts, and over and above this, it fails to see that it confuses two spheres of observation between which it can find no connection. Then the summary for 29 is, this critical idealism, as opposed to naive realism, seeks to prove that percepts have the character of mental pictures while accepting the percepts of one's own organism as facts, and fails to show their interconnection. Again, what 29 is saying is critical idealism is confusing what a mental picture is. It's saying that a mental picture is really a percept. And again, Steiner earlier on said this is one of the problems. I forget which paragraph it was, but this is one of the biggest problems, was this confusion to distinguish between what a mental picture is and what an object of observation is. And that's basically what he's summarizing here. What was the other main point? Yeah, that's basically it. So I'm going to move on to 30. Critical idealism can refute naive realism only by itself assuming, in naive realistic fashion, that one's own organism has objective existence. As soon as the idealist realizes that the percepts connected with his own organism are exactly of the same nature as those which naive realism assumes to have objective existence, he can no longer use those percepts as a safe foundation for his theory. He would have to regard even his own subjective organism as a mere complex of mental pictures. But this removes the possibility of regarding the content of the perceived world as a product of our spiritual organization. One would have to assume that the mental picture color was only a modification of the mental picture eye. So-called critical idealism cannot be proved without borrowing from naive realism. Naive realism can be refuted only if, in another sphere, its own assumptions are accepted without proof as being valid. And the summary for 30 we have was, neither critical idealism nor naive realism can be satisfyingly proven. And as he says here, I think, yeah, we explained it a little bit more in another paragraph, but what does he say here? I mean, we would have to, if you're into critical idealism, you would have to, everything is a mental picture then. Your whole body and everything that you have to perceive the world is a mental picture in itself, you know, you'd have to argue that. And so Steiner here is again showing how absurd this whole critical idealism as a theory is, and you can't, it's not really it's not really providing a good foundation for how to know the world, because you're saying everything's a mental picture, like I see a table, it's a mental picture, blah blah blah. I mean, there's no, the fact, it's just not pointing out the obvious that only a real eye, which he talks about later on, only a real eye can provide this information, not a mental picture of the eye. So again, it's all about the fact that critical idealism fails to distinguish between a mental picture and an object of observation. And I probably have time for 31. This much then is certain: investigation within the world of percepts cannot establish critical idealism, and consequently cannot strip percepts of their objective character. Summary for that is: investigation in the perceptual realm cannot prove critical idealism, nor take away the objectivity of percepts. So Steiner here is just pointing out that the world of percepts is objective. It's if I see something, it's not subjective necessarily, but it is to some degree. But what we perceive is real, and what we perceive can be perceived by others as well. So that has to be recognized for what it is. Just because I may have certain flaws in my organism, or I may not perceive everything that everyone else may perceive, does not mean that my perceptions aren't real. I think that kind of is explaining that whole idea when he says percepts have an objective character. Because if I'm in a room with 12 people and we talk about what we're perceiving, we're all gonna find that lots of what we perceive are going to be similar. I may not notice something, but someone else may notice something, but that doesn't mean that's not objective. It just means maybe I just didn't notice that at first, or just because that's sort of what he means when he's talking about percepts having an objective character. So I've got 2 paragraphs left, which I will definitely finish in the next session. So I look forward to seeing you guys again next time. Bye.